My name is Brian Hagan. I'm CEO of the Fargo group of Bremer banks. The Fargo group includes Minot, Richardson, Carrington, Devils Lake, Lisbon, Castleton, Fargo, Moorhead, Detroit Lakes, and Perm. I would like to note that our group of banks are very involved in financing production agriculture, and we continue to be very involved in that. That's very positive for us. Before I get started, I'd like to introduce my wife, Emily, and my little girl, Rachel. You know, it's really an honor for me to be here tonight, for our organization has been a strong supporter of farm rescue, and we will continue to be that strong supporter of farm rescue. Since I met Bill Gross and learned more about this great organization, Bremer has been able to provide that hope for so many farmers. Many people in this audience spend long days behind the wheel of a tractor or combine, bringing really this mission to life. You know, we're committed to continue to help fund this cost of this organization. The Otto Bremer Foundation and Bremer Banks have committed to provide grants and donations to help with this great cause. You know, as I was thinking, you might be asking yourself, why is Bremer so committed to farm rescue? And there are really two main reasons to this. One, I grew up on a farm in north central North Dakota in the Botno area. It was actually in the Turtle Mountains. Most of the presidents and managers that work with me have grew up on farms. Our bankers grew up on farms, and mainly in North Dakota. Our farm was a small family farm consisting of hogs, cattle, and small grain. You know, growing up, I watched as neighbors went through a family death, loss of limbs, cancer, children got hurt, and other challenges. But I also watched as neighbors would rally around to help them plant the crops. You know, work with their livestock, harvest crops, and yes, milk those dairy cattle, so they could plan for that coming year. So this was my version of farm rescue growing up as a child. My career allowed me to work as an ag banker in Rolla, North Dakota, Hastings, Minnesota, and I was also heavily involved in the ag crisis as an ag banker in the mid-'80s. The second reason why Bremer is so committed to farm rescue is the Otto Bremer Foundation's history. It really ties it to the banks and it ties it to the community. Excuse me. Much like farm rescue, Bremer was founded by a man who was very passionate about his community and who was committed to reaching out to those people in need. You know, now I would like to take just a few minutes to share with you the Bremer story and tell you a little bit about Otto Bremer. Really, that's our own Bill Gross. It all started with Otto and Adolf Bremer immigrating to the United States in the late 1800s. Otto Bremer became a bookkeeper of a bank within 6 months of arriving in America. 13 years later, he was the chief clerk and the major stockholder of the bank. Maybe they didn't have auditors then, I'm not sure, but anyway, he was the major stockholder. Otto's brother, Adolf, married Marie Schmidt. Now, that might not mean a lot to you in this room, but that was a daughter of Jacob Schmidt, the father, in which her father was the owner of Schmidt Brewery in St. Paul. So Otto, soon after the marriage, found a job with the brewery, and the brothers soon owned 25% of the brewery. Again, I'm not sure how that works. But then came the 30s and the Great Depression. Otto and Adolf, through the friends in the banking world, borrowed bank owners over $8 million in the 30s in exchange for stock. And at that time, as you would, think, the stock was really worthless. By the end of the 30s, Otto Bremer had controlling interests in over 55 banks. Not sure what he was going to do with them. Otto was very involved in politics, became the treasurer of St. Paul, managed the Homeowners Corporation of Minnesota, and above all, he got to know a number of bankers and bank owners throughout the upper Midwest. His connection was really the start of the Otto Bremer Foundation. Because Otto Bremer never married, he struggled with what to do with the banks once he passed on. he decided to set up a trust to own the bank stock once he passed on. The Otto Bremer Foundation was set up in 1943, and Otto Bremer passed on in 1953. The key to this whole thing is the trust document, which really consists of 4 primary goals. The first one, it talks about he wanted to keep the community spirit alive, because through the 30s he would see the community spirit dwindle in these small communities. The other thing that's important to us, he wanted to make sure that the banks could not be sold, which is important to me for job stability, that's one. But it also allows us to retain and attract very good employees. He wanted to make sure that we would continue to have local decision-making based on our current structure. That allows us, again, to retain employees. The really key to this whole thing, he wanted to make sure that the bank dividends or profits were given back to the communities that they were generated in. And this is well defined and spelled out within our trust document. So this is really the beauty of the Otto Bremer Foundation. As banks generate profits and declare dividends to the foundation in turn reinvests these dividends back in the communities in the form of grants and sponsorships. His whole goal is he wanted to help avoid the problems experienced by small communities in the 30s. So that's really the key to the Bremer story. The employees, the management today, we really consider this the 3 legs of the Bremer partnership, or a 3-legged stool maybe on the farm. Number 1, it's the employees. We got to make sure that we provide a culture that's very inclusive and respectful to our employees. Secondly, the second leg on the stool is our clients. We have to make sure that we're taking care of the clients in the good times and the bad times. We need to meet or beat their expectations. The third leg on the stool is the partnership with the local nonprofits within our community. So really, the Bremer story, in our mind, in our communities, is really to help build those healthy communities. The Otto Bremer Foundation owns 92% of the banks, and we also have an employee ESOP, which owns the other 8%. And also the Otto Bremer Foundation, it is a charitable foundation. Now I'd like to just give you some examples of what we do support on an annual basis. Obviously, farm rescue. We support the various food shelves throughout our footprint. We're the largest funder of Great Harvest. I believe they're out of the Twin Cities. They're kind of the main one that supplies food to the rest of the food shelves. The YWCA Women's Shelter, YMCAs throughout our footprint, rape and abuse centers. We buy specialized medical equipment for various hospitals. We buy ambulances. We buy scanners for hospitals. We buy playground equipment. We buy fire trucks. We also help with low-income housing. And we have provided a lot of funding to the latest flood relief and also to the one in 1997. So really, our goal is to try to help provide that all-important safety net. Let me tell you a little bit about our statistics. The Otto Bremer Foundation and the banks gave back to the Fargo-Moorhead area $3.2 million in 2008 and over $5 million statewide. Over the past 10 years, we have given back $28 million in the Fargo-Moorhead area and over $50 million statewide. The Otto Bremer Foundation gave back $29 million in 2006, $32 million in 2007, and $32 million in 2008. Today we are a $7.5 billion financial services organization. We have over 100 offices. Typically, they're only located in North Dakota, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, and that's due to our trust document.